Hello and welcome to another episode, the second episode of Ian and Jack's Retail Ramble with me, Jack Stratton from Insider Trends, and as ever, Ian Scott. How are you, mate?
I'm very well, thank you. Lovely to be back chatting with you again.
Yeah, brilliant, Ian. What I want to do with this episode is a kind of a distilled version of what we've done on the previous one, and I think what we'll do
Yeah,
on upcoming episodes. Basically, just catch up on me and you. We're the store guys. We spend all our time whether we're on a project, preparing for a project, or frankly, probably if we're just kind of enjoying our free time, we're in a lot of stores
yes,
having good, bad experiences all over the world. So I
yeah.
thought the first part, let's just share since we last spoke.
Mm.
Some of those experiences. So kick off with you, mate. So we spoke, I think, a month or two ago. I'm not sure where
Yeah.
you've been travel wise. I know you've been
Um,
covering on LinkedIn stuff in London. I've seen some stuff in Birmingham. Where have you been?
yeah, London and Birmingham. Yeah, I've not travelled quite as far as you have in the last few months because I wasn't able to go to NRF in New York this year.
Yeah,
It seemed like everyone else went. I had massive FOMO, but no, I've been doing quite a lot in London, and there's been some interesting stuff. I mean, the one that immediately springs to mind is the AI machine that the fragrance shop has put into their new concept
yeah,
store on Oxford Street. And I was they kindly gave me a quick tour of it to give me some understanding. And I was really fascinated with this because obviously you can't move in retail without waffling on about AI at the moment. But this was one of the few times I've seen an overt physical experience that uses AI. So
yeah.
what they
So
were,
what? Just to jump in, the thing I went there the other day, and obviously went there with you as well.
yeah.
Really interesting. I'm not going to offer any opinion on it yet. I want to know just what, from your point of view, firstly, just for anyone listening, watching, what does it actually do? What's the point of the
Yeah.
fragrance
So
AI?
what you do is there's a QR code in store, and I think you can get it online as well. You scan it, and there's a questionnaire. I think 20, 25 questions, lifestyle questions. You like going out? Do you like staying in? Are you country? Are you city? Ask a few things on flavor and scent preferences, and then it gives you a code. And I do love the irony that you have this QR code. You do it all on phone, and then by hand you punch a six-digit code into a pad. And there's this machine in the window in Oxford Street, and it looks like a science lab. And they deliberately kept it looking like that. It's welded steel structure. I think 45 glass vials, which have the different ingredients in. And then you get the little sample bottles. And what they do is they create three different variances on a theme of different personalized fragrances based on your questionnaire. And you have the theatre of the little bottle going along the conveyor belt and all the ingredients going in. And then the little label goes around. You can choose the name of the fragrance and they give it to you in a presentation box. It costs 45 quid. If you don't like any of the fragrances, you can have another go for £12 and they will have a second interpretation. And then they're stored online. So if you like them, you can then order larger bottles. So I was fascinated by this idea because in the window, there's a thing that catches your eye. To be fair, I think the communication isn't strong because in the window, you don't fully understand what the offer is. But I've watched people stop in their tracks and stare because in a slick fragrance store, you don't expect this welded steel structure that
Mm.
looks like it's come out of a mad scientist's lab. So it's a great way of engaging. And I think it's really fun. Now, I had a go and I love all three of the fragrances I've got, and I am going to purchase a couple of them as larger ones. So I like the way they interpreted it. And I was fascinated to understand because I was chatting with the guys from the fragrance shop beforehand about my flavor phrasing. I like the musky smells like oud, O-U-D, which is quite a strong scent. And then in the questionnaire, they asked me, do you like oud? And I was immediately like, is this like all the apps on your phone that are listening? You know, are they picking up on what I'm saying and therefore shaping the questions? And I'd love to understand how that works. But to me, that was a practical application of AI. And I get worried about AI because everyone calls it the future of retail, like they did the metaverse. Remember the metaverse from a couple of years ago?
I do.
Uh, that McKinsey said will be worth $5 trillion within 5 years. You know, and you worry about the faddy nature of it, and nothing is ever the future, but that's a whole separate conversation. But I like how practical the application was, using the store to capture the eye, create engagement, and get people in the store. If you get the message right, it's a footfall driver as well.
And it's so I think so from the outside, I completely agree with you. And I just final point on that whole experience is that I did think it looked interesting
Yeah,
from the outside, the whole machine. And actually, in that store, yeah, it did stand out. And I kind of, it's funny how basically it was quite a good idea. And AI led or not, there was some theatre, there was some experience there. You know, there's definitely the potential to grow it from a kind of customization, personalization, gifting point of view, all that good stuff. So funny how it kind of fell down just from pretty classic, simple, you know, lack of understanding of just how humans behave. In other words, just not explaining it clearly, not giving us
Yeah.
clear signage, clear. You know, as much as I did like a lot of it, from in some ways, it's interesting how, you know, I wonder what causes that. Is that just that they didn't maybe have someone in the room? They're all getting so excited about what this could do. Maybe there's no one there to say, "Hang on, are we actually explaining what this is, why it's there,
Yeah.
what might be in it for you?" It's interesting. It just goes to show you still need that kind of common sense human perspective in the room, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, understanding humans, it's not even understanding shoppers. I always say 90% of engaging shoppers is understanding how humans think. The other 10% is the uniqueness of your product or
Yeah,
sector or any regional or cultural variances. 90% humans are the same. And I think that's where it comes down. And I did see a guy stood staring at the window, and I walked up to him and said, "What do you think of that?" He goes, "It looks really interesting. What is it?"
hmm.
And I explained, he goes, "Oh, that's really cool. I'll have to come back and have a look." So you realize there's a huge potential for engagement there. But I think sometimes, yeah, just clearly explaining, especially in a window, the job of a window is to get you to come inside the store. And what I love is that machine gets you sort of three-quarters of the way there. And all
Yeah.
you need is a simple, using AI to create your personalized scent, come in and learn more, would sort of help do that job.
Fascinating to know if they tested it, if they basically made no mention of AI whatsoever and flipped the whole thing and just
Yeah.
basically called it, just went, this is a crazy personalized scent machine. Make your own fragrance in six
Yeah.
seconds or something like that, and forgot about any of the AI. Probably do better.
That would be interesting because I don't know if AI will confuse or deter some shoppers
I think
because
it probably does still. We
yeah,
forget as people in the retail industry, we forget that to a lot of people, AI is still something that triggers thoughts of 80s sci-fi movies. You know,
yes.
generally movies
Oh yeah,
that end in the
Skynet.
world. Yeah,
Skynet, isn't it?
right.
The
It's
robots are
bad.
taking over,
Yeah,
and I'm fascinated because AI, I mean, we could do a whole episode on AI, and I've done some presentations in the last few months on the human considerations around AI because that everyone thinks AI is going to take over and fix everything, and I go, well, it won't. With the physical space, I've always said three unique aspects, right? Face-to-face contact with another human, touching and feeling products, and peripheral vision's ability to make you buy more when you're in the shop. They're the
mm,
three things that digital struggles with or cannot do. And
yeah,
so if you think AI is going to replace humans, immediately I'm going, well, don't bother having a store. The moment you go into an unmanned digital automated store, it's just a physical app. And you're losing the uniqueness of the store. When instead you should be embracing the uniqueness of the store because that's a key point of difference and it's another channel and another way of engaging your shoppers. Don't turn all of your channels into your app, otherwise just have the bloody app.
yeah,
And physical still 75% of your sales. By all means, be experiential, AI, blah blah blah. You still got to sell shit in that store
yeah,
because
yeah,
that's
yeah,
where three-quarters of your sales come from. So embrace the unique aspects of that channel and make them work better. And I'm not anti AI, but I always think AI should be supporting those objectives and that uniqueness. So yeah, have the automated processes, the simplification, the personalization, the data insight. That's
yeah,
brilliant.
yeah,
And
yeah.
make everything else. It's like the swan. Keep the humans as the swan's head. Let AI be the feet going crazy underneath. Is my thought.
Yeah, I am anti AI. I'm just going to say it. I'm
You
not.
actually
No, I'm not going
I,
down that route.
I'm cautious. I think it's great, but don't let it replace everything, is my view. You
I'm
just don't want
totally.
it.
I'm in the same. I mean, exactly the same boat. I'm just joking about it a lot because quite a few people at NRS said, "Oh, I've seen you being very critical of AI," and it's quite funny how it's framed because people are a bit
Yeah.
scared. Like, what are you doing? You can't be saying
Yes.
bad things about AI. No one will employ you. No one will give you a job. What are you going to do? But yeah, I completely agree with you on all of that. We'll
But
do
I would
another.
say, I
We'll
would
do a
also
whole
say
episode
though,
on AI.
there is always an audience for a detractor. Last year I
Yeah,
was
yeah.
invited to present at a Gen Z conference, and you know how I always roll my eyes when everyone goes on about, and they love the fact, and they wheeled me in as the miserable git. And my first page was of Scrooge, and he just said "bar humbug," and I'm like,
Love it.
I am now going to challenge everything that everyone else has said in this conference today. So we have an audience of being detractors as well.
There's a big gap in the market for the miserable git, and we should be
Yeah.
telling a lot of brand stat as well. They're all talking
Yes.
to lovely, excitable, enthusiastic people in their late teens and early 20s. I say to retailers,
Yes.
you need to start talking to the miserable gits. There's lots of them.
Right,
They often have more money.
We've got to rename the podcast Bar Humbug, won't we?
I love it. Right. So that I went to the fragrance shop with you. It's really interesting, and I think, well, for anyone that hasn't, really worth visiting that bit of Oxford Street opposite the Elizabeth line, Tottenham Court Road,
Yes.
actually, because there's lots going on there, and it's really little. It's an interesting kind of bit of momentum growing at that end of Oxford Street, which is great, much needed.
I love it. Yeah.
I was gonna, just for one that interested me, I'll go for New York. I'm actually going to mention a store you know well, because we covered it when we did a tour together for a very large consultancy that will remain unnamed.
Yes.
For legal reasons, but who are lovely to deal with.
You're going to need a ladder to get out of this hole soon.
Yeah, no, exactly. It could be anyone. So what I'll say is, what really stood out for me was Pop Up Grocer, and I know you really liked it as well. Do you know what I liked? So it's, again, anyone that can go to a visit or just have a quick look online, because the first thing is, what a fun, beautiful, bold, vibrant space. It was great. Everyone,
it looks like a cartoon, doesn't it?
It looks like a cartoon. It's crazy. And so, first thing is, it's just fun. It's a nice space to walk into. So the concept is, it's actually, online, actually primarily an online platform for new food businesses. So this is a place for brand new food businesses to basically get some exposure. And and the founder, I believe she's called Emily Schmidt, she has set up this great idea where every couple of months, most of the brands in there will flip, and there'll be a bunch of new brands. Not an entirely new concept, actually. Obviously, that's what that's what Showfields, before they've kind of collapsed recently, that was kind of their principle. But Pop Up Grocer, to me, actually, I think has more potential, more opportunity. So firstly, it's smaller. It's just the one store. They are running a few other pop-ups. But what I loved about it, I don't know what you thought about when you went, is that it really works for different parties. So from these brands' point of view, the food brands, it's great, because I've heard from a lot of brands, food brands, that a big problem they have when they go into grocers is actually getting visibility in your standard supermarket in the West is just a nightmare, which I totally get. I've never really thought about it, and I chatted to a couple of small food brands, and they're like, "Yeah, it's impossible. You work all your life to get into Tesco, but then you get a tiny fixture, and you are swamped by all the giants, right?"
Yeah.
So from their point of view, actually, is the big supermarket really the of course, that's the goal, but is it the best place to be entering? Not necessarily.
And the financials can sometimes mean you're a busy fool as well.
Yeah,
I've known
exactly.
brands that have gone bust because they're selling, hundreds of thousands of units in Tesco's now.
Totally. So it's like, even if you sell a lot, and then the thing is, are you really going to get the love and support and have your hand held in those difficult early days of running a business when you're working with the big supermarkets? And that's not to criticize the big supermarkets and grocers. No. It's not possible. Pop-up grocer, they get that. This is when I was learning more about them. And if you have to apply to be stocked there and stock with them, but it's a small selection of brands, so you get a lot of help. And you're there with, and then what's great is you're pre-qualifying the kind of customer. So everyone who goes in there, they're there to discover new brands. You've got a really good chance of getting seen. So then for the customer, I think it's great, because there's a real clarity of experience. You know that that's a place of discovery and inspiration, which, by the way, there is still a role for in physical stores, no question. I saw loads of that in New York. Again, I go to NRF, and everything one way or another, NRF is automation, speeding up, efficiency, optimization, all incredibly important. But it was nice to see in some stores that the counterpoint to that, discovery, actually, and inspiration. Yes. Because we're overwhelmed with choice and products and options, and actually it's really nice to go into space again and just basically be told, look, here's some cool new stuff. See what you think. Really lovely, meaningful experience. Loved it. Loved the way it was executed, and I think real potential. And I know you enjoyed it when you went there.
I did. I loved it, and it was the first store on the tour that I did last September, and it created a huge sort of stir with people. They were just fascinated, going, "What? How does this work?" And and you explain how they sort of curate and encourage startup businesses, and they create the environment, the physical environment, looks like a space that is new and fresh and encourages you to browse as well. It's all sort of bright pastel primary colors, and it sort of almost feels like, I say, a retro 1950s American cartoon sort of feel to it.
Yeah.
immediately sets you in a frame of mind of fun and discovery. And I love that. And you know, the challenge is how they can scale that model in a way that it has legs and durability rather than just being a novelty that's around for a while and we remember as a case study.
Yeah, and that's on that. That's interesting because I read that they pop-up grocer has been trialed in a Nordstrom store,
Mm,
which is interesting. I think to me, the real, I haven't heard about this happening yet, but where I can see potential is a pop-up grocer within an established, big supermarket. So
yeah.
when a supermarket does a shop in shop, and then from the customer point of view and the brand point of view, this is the new product section.
Yes.
At a certain part of the store, those spaces are big enough. I think groceries and supermarkets, we're becoming much more familiar with the idea that they're more than just product. So I know that's
Yes.
been happening with cafes, but also, increasingly supermarkets merging into other sectors, becoming more
Yeah.
like those kind of French hypermarkets. It doesn't feel strange for that to happen, but I can see
Yeah.
I can see that working on both sides. So I hope
Yeah.
that's what happens because I
Well,
think
you,
it's
you
good.
you get the benefit both. Like you say, it's a win-win. You get the brands in pop-up grocer get exposure and footfall. It's just important that the main supermarket doesn't fleece them to within an inch of their life,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
they
this
view
is
it as
it.
an investment in diversification and capturing new people. And this is the danger because obviously the big supermarkets, they work off small margins, but they squeeze suppliers with the promise of huge exposure in hundreds and hundreds of stores. And whereas the pop-up grocer offer is not about minimal margin and millions of exposures, so that would be my concern. But if they embrace it in the right way, a bit like Selfridges do, they
Yeah,
have whole
absolutely.
areas for startup fashion brands, and they embrace and champion. I have no idea about the financials there, but they embrace these startup brands, and that's really what a Tesco's or a Carrefour or a Walmart could do with that sort of concept. What you don't want is the Macy's and Story concept, where you have this
Absolutely.
amazing idea that just gets swallowed up, abused, and obliterated by a massive retailer. And that would be really sad.
I think you're right. Massive potential, but there's some big pitfalls. But yeah, look, that was great. Now I wanted to for the final part of this then, wanted to jump into just a bigger store related question. I think I'm going to throw at you. We'll try and do that in each of these episodes. So I was thinking about some big things that we can't recently. And again, thinking a little bit about NRF and big trends,
Mm.
retail media networks were probably number two. If you had to say what were the two things that everyone was talking about, is AI and retail media networks. So just without I won't get into the weeds of the tech side of this too much, the potential, the growth. We all know, we're seeing the stories in the press how much, for example, Walmart are investing in retail media networks. Every major British supermarket now is
Mm.
investing in it one way or another online, but also thinking about what it means in physical stores. But what do you think? Because I've seen this mentioned a few times. I think it's a great point. Everyone's talking about retail media networks from the retailer's point of view, right? And there it's win-win, massive profit margins compared to the normal
Mm.
frat profit margin of trying to sell, food at very low margins, right? So the supermarkets love it because why wouldn't they want to make money out of advertising? And they're looking at the biggest companies in the world like Amazon, and they see that's where real money is advertising. Get it, right? I get it from their point of view. From the brand's point of view, I guess in some cases it can work. They get more data that they wouldn't get unless they go D2C. I get that. They can get some
Mm.
useful data. Again, their groceries are going to be pitching to them a lot at the moment, right? And probably in some cases, the deal isn't as good as what they're being told it is. But anyway, so maybe there's some benefit there. But the customer, this is the
Mm.
big one for me. How does it change imagining the retail media network that Walmart might talk about, right? Digital screens that maybe have some AI in them and through technology can be sort of semi-customized, changing, picking up all kinds of data, whatever. So think of that almost, think of the future model where actually there's tons of retail media going on in a Walmart store where it's interactive and digitized and all this stuff, right? That everyone was talking about NRF. What about the customer? Is that good for the customers? They're walking around the supermarket looking for their stuff, carrying out those. Richard Hammond at Undercrowd. I love how he always talks about shopper missions. Lots of different reasons that someone walks around
Why,
the
why you're
supermarket.
there, yeah.
Why you're there, right? Now, think about all those missions. Is that helpful? All these adverts everywhere. Do we like them?
Mm. Well,
What do you
oh,
think?
okay, let me polish my soapbox now, because this
Yeah,
is a
please.
topic I've complained about many times. I mean, firstly, for 20 years, I was a business development guy in retail design and point of sale. and going in to try and get another £5 per unit budget to get a display system in place to sell more stuff was impossible. You suddenly add screens, and instead of £5 extra, it's £1,000 extra because everyone's got a hard on for the technology. Okay, and anyone that's worked in retail design for the last 20 years, slapping their palm on their forehead, going, what the hell is going on? Because first of all, everyone's excited about the technology. And I'm going, not technology as in the cleverness, but a screen. And I always say a screen is like a clip frame. Okay. It's a thing that delivers a message. Now, if the message is wrong, then all you've done is spend more money delivering the wrong message. The moment your customers are admiring your 8K screen in the store, it is overriding the important thing, which is talking to the customer at the right point of the journey with the right message so they buy more. That is the ultimate objective. It's not ad spend, it's partnering with the brand so they sell more stuff to the customer keeps coming back, and the brand keeps investing in the retail media network. I don't hear anyone talking about that. All I hear is talking about the ad revenue, and that will work once. If if Tesco strong arm Unilever to spend 100 grand on advertising and it doesn't work, you ain't going to get the next 100 grand. So that's that side.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
the,
yeah.
but the challenge you really have as well is, like you say, the customer. I went into the Sainsbury's store in Witney, which is their test and learn store, because I'd heard about how they were introducing screens, and I walked into a dog's dinner of communication with different types of size, and I posted it on LinkedIn. Certain views across, and there were like 4 or 5 layers of different messages shouting for attention. Illuminated, I thought there were screens, they're not. They're illuminated signage above the fresh fruit and vegetable, category signage, but sitting next to the category signage going fish and steak was a big sign for nectar. So the communication hierarchy is confusing because you're going, just category signage to help you navigate. I need to buy biscuits. Where are biscuits? But at the same level of biscuits, you're going nectar. You're going, what's nectar? What, are you selling honey? What's going on here? And then aside from that, you have the confusion that the nectar color scheme is exactly the same as Cadbury's. So Cadbury's
Yeah,
own
yeah, yeah.
purple in supermarkets. You see it, some of purple, you think of
Mm.
Cadbury. Don't ask customers. Subconsciously, it's embedded because they've used it for decades. And there was a nectar sign next to a load of Cadbury's product. It's one I call the bus stop sign, the fin that sticks out from the shelf,
Yeah.
exactly the same color as the product, different offer. So there's a real confusion there. And the problem is they won't know this if you talk to a customer because you're asking people to consciously respond to something that they do subconsciously and subliminally. Is it a problem? Customers don't think that because they'll just see it, not understand and move on. And they've even forgotten that that moment happened 10 seconds later. So you're confusing the customers with weird color combinations. What Cadbury's will be a category captain in supermarkets. Each category has a captain,
Yeah.
and they're the biggest brand, and they're the one that's often asked to fund everything because they gain more if the whole category increases. Why match your corporate color to one of your biggest category captains? Doesn't make any sense. You will confuse the shopper, but you won't capture that on your spreadsheet. They just won't buy, and they won't understand why, and the customer can't even tell you why. So you have this massive noise. And I remember when I started reading about retail media networks and I started saying this on LinkedIn, I saw a post and someone had clicked a social media post from a Walmart customer after they started introducing screens. And this customer was complaining that their supermarket looked like a casino now. Now, we do understand there's a difference between people will object and be outraged and then they'll carry on and do the right thing. There's a disconnect from moaning and behavior. But this is the problem now. I think we had 15,000 messages a day we hit. We're deselecting information now. We're not
Yeah,
selecting
yeah,
it.
yeah.
We're choosing what to ignore. We're just ignoring it. So the danger is you look across any mid-positioned or value supermarket and you drown in visual noise. Sign after sign after sign everywhere. Adding more signs that move, and I know movement is a distraction, will capture your eye, but it's too much. You should be replacing, not adding to start with. In fact, you should be reducing. And if you don't get the right message at the right time, it's wrong. The window should be coming to the shop. The entrance and what I call the decompression zone should be, this is what we do and this is where it is. On shelf should be by me, not them. Okay, the very simple principles.
Yeah.
And you've still got companies sticking TV adverts, which are about brand recall, in store. And it's going, this is the wrong message. You're not
Yeah, yeah,
understanding.
yeah.
And I keep saying, and I know it's having spoken to some people, the budget for retail media network spans 3 different departments and different budgets. So it's a nightmare in that you've got to get people together. The one department that they should be putting front and center is shopper marketing that understands the customer. Say the
Yeah.
right thing at the right point of the journey. And as Richard Hammond says, for the right reason of why the customer's in the store. And for supermarkets, you have loads of different reasons. Your lunchtime grab and go meal deal is
Mm.
speed. Your weekly shop is about value and price. Your fancy dinner party is about quality. Same shopper in the same shop, 3 completely different missions. Now, that I can say that the poor old supermarket and brands have to work out how to encapsulate that in a cost-effective, profitable way. But that's their world, not mine. But these are some of the things they've got to consider.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the shopper won't tell them. They won't give them feedback group. They'll just switch off. Couldn't even tell you why. They'll just switch off because you're not engaging them at the right time.
I
That's
think
my
that's a
feeling.
really, yeah. And I think, you said you're getting on your soapbox, but I think that was a pretty reasonable assessment because you're not necessarily totally destroying the concept, and
No, no,
you,
it's
what
a
you're
great
pointing out is the
concept.
same. You're pointing out the same thing that basically I feel, which is a bit like with some aspects of how AI is being talked about. I just feel like we're jumping straight to thinking about what it does for the retailer, which obviously is great because they're going to make money, and the brand, and this should all be rooted in the customer, and I don't see that yet. And I think, well, there's two. Okay, one point essentially that I wanted to make, actually two. Firstly, for any American listeners who don't know what the phrase "dog's dinner" is, I realise "dog's dinner" is a very British phrase.
A bloody mess.
It's a bloody mess. You might have
Or as
assumed
the
that by
Americans go, a
hearing me
shit
say
show is probably the American way
shit
of
show. Yeah,
describing it.
dog's dinner is a shit show. Exactly. I always think it's a funny phrase because actually, I mean, obviously, some dog's dinners are great. I remember my partner's,
On
my
topic for
partner's
another podcast.
yeah, yeah, yeah. My mother-in-law, I'm going off piece here. My mother-in-law, she, remember, she had this little kind of tiny little Shih Tzu type dog, and honestly, I remember when I first met her and I saw her eating this Marks and Spencer steak that she cooked her, and I said straight away, I said that dog eats better than I do, you know.
Yeah.
But anyway, so dog's dinner sometimes. But anyway, dog's
Yes.
dinner for my
Yeah.
listeners.
Thank you
That
for the
means
international translation.
that means shit show. I just love the phrase dog's dinner. It's one of my favorites. The second point. So I think you touched on this, but it's such an important point to make. Advertising. We know, like on almost every, and we know this instinctively anyway, but
Yeah.
look at any study, people's interest in, trust in, enjoyment of advertising is diminishing all the time because there's too much of it and it's too present on every possible channel right now,
Yeah.
every digital channel, every offline channel, it's everywhere, right? Basically, across the board, we're all sick of advertising.
Yeah.
It's just remarkable to me that we're not thinking from the customer point of view. My God, we've got to be intelligent about this retail media network thing because we know customers don't like advertising. And what we're going to be doing them is giving them more. We're giving them more. And the one almost, in a way, to me, the store is a bit of a haven, isn't it, of not being advertised at. It's some of the
Yeah.
reason people really like the physical environment. They go, oh,
Yes.
online, it's just been. So retail media networks on a grocery platform,
Yeah.
sort of get that it's going to grow because let's face it, we all know that that's going to grow. And if you see a bunch of ads before the item that you're looking at, that's really annoying. That's not a good experience. But
Yes.
you semi-expect it now because you've got your targeted ads on your sidebar and you've got stuff in front of you. We're used to all that rubbish. But in a store, I mean, people love, well, whether they're conscious of it or not, people love their local supermarket, their local convenience store. We do. Wherever we are in the world, it's a part of our daily life.
Yeah.
And we're just potentially throwing something we hate into that thing that we love. I think that's just such an obvious point to make, but we can't forget people do not like adverts and we're going to give them more adverts.
Yes,
So,
and I think you need to. I always say to so many clients, understand who your customers are and how they want to buy and why they're buying, and reverse everything you do into that. So I think retail media networks can be a great idea if you apply that. But all I hear is we're going to make so much money selling ad space, and I
yes,
roll my
exactly.
eyes, going, the brands will be gone within 6 months because it's a waste of money, and you'll alienate your customers. Explain to me how this ad revenue is a good thing. Because it will be short term. You're going to spend a lot of money, or a lot of them. I know they're going to the network. They're not, the supermarkets are not necessarily spending money setting this up. They're bringing in a third party who will set it up for them, and they do revenue share, so they can reduce their investment in it and just share the spoils. but it's like it won't go. And I said, how many of these supermarkets will turn around to a brand and go, don't spend your money on that, it won't work. Okay. Now, if I was a brand, I would go, oh, why not? And they go, because our research suggests that what you need to do is do this, even if it costs less money. I can't see any supermarket doing that. But the brands will go, we're in a strategic partnership here. We're in this journey together. Instead of feeling like their arms being twisted, going, yeah, we'll give you a whole bay. Now just pop into the ad department on the way out and sign up for 6 months adverts. That's the wrong way of doing it, and they won't listen to me. They'll ignore it and they'll laugh at some gobby idiot going on about it. But gobby for Americans is a loudmouth person. So I'm going to go do the international version. But it's like if you turn around to the brands and go, right, this is what our research has shown us. Don't spend that 100 grand, spend that 50 grand. You will get multiples of that 50 grand because it works, and then it becomes 70 grand, and then it becomes 100 grand. They're not thinking like that. And that's what scares me, because it's a land grab. And it shouldn't be a land grab. It should be sow the seed, water it, sunshine, let it grow. You
Absolutely.
end up with a bigger tree, and that's, I don't know. They're not going to listen because they got excited. And I've lived for 25 years in that physical space where you're trying to persuade people to buy more. And just forcing brands to fill adverts is not the right way to do it. But if you did it right and understood that and tailored the right message, and you look at Tesco's, they owned dunnhumby, who invented the club card. They started that Insight loyalty card. They have experts in there, and I'd love to see how they're doing it. And I know I'm simplifying, and I'm sure they'll turn around and go, actually, Ian, we are doing these sort of things. And I'm sure there is, but I will reserve judgment, because what I've seen go into Asda and Sainsbury's so far, I'm going, I think I'm right. And I would love one of them to prove me wrong. And I'm not saying they're all doing it wrong, but I would love to see that. And I'd love to hear from brands going, we're working in partnership with Tesco's here. We're gaining the insight, we're sharing that, and we're tailoring the content of the different parts of the journey so that we can engage the customers and help them buy the right things and keep coming back. Because that should be the medium to long-term objective, not we
Absolutely.
made 100 grand off Unilever because that's the only way they can sell Marmite.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think, it's a really good way to finish off that, because ultimately, from the tech side of things and the retailer
Yeah.
side, the only interest here is speed, making money as fast as possible. But anyone in the industry, I think we need to challenge this from the consumer side, from the customer side, that,
Yeah.
there's potential here, but it
It
has
would
to
be
be done
amazing if we
in a
could get
way.
someone from one of the supermarkets to come in and have a chat with us about this again.
Yeah,
I
we
would
definitely
love
can.
that.
Let's
I'd
do
love.
that. Well, anyone from a supermarket listening, come and talk to me and Ian. But yeah, we'll delve into our little black books, mate. We'll get someone on.
Yes. Yeah. Please come and tell
Ian,
us why we're wrong.
yeah, exactly. Thank you so much for the time. I mean, me and you could chat for hours.
Yes,
We
and
do.
we
We
do.
did before we started recording. We started about 45 minutes late because we were
Yes.
gassing. Next time we'll do one in a month. And actually, I think after that, I was thinking we're doing a tour together in London.
Yes.
There'll be a bunch of new stores on that, so that'll be fun. We can cover a bit of that, some new
Yeah,
stuff that we
definitely.
uncover. In the meantime, lovely to see you again, mate, and
And you.
good luck with the move.
Thank you. Thank you.
And we'll be back. We're back in a few weeks with another retail ramble. So thanks for listening.
Definitely. Thanks very much, guys.